Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Investing Bros. It's good to have all you guys here. I was told yesterday, or someone tweeted at me yesterday, that they love our show, they love our time slot because we wake them up every single morning. So that, it makes me think, especially all of you people all on the West Coast, welcome to the day. Good morning. We're glad we get to wake you up. I know Matt C is not one of those people. He probably won't be joining us for another half hour or so, but that's okay because we have a phenomenal show. But go ahead and grab whatever you drink in the morning. Do you drink water, coffee, energy drinks, tea? Go ahead and grab it and suit on in because we got a great show lined up for you guys. We're going to be doing some technical analysis. We're going to be covering a couple of pretty big headlines, and I'm going to throw it over to my co-host T-Shroom. And he's going to tell us about those headlins. But first of all, how are you doing this morning, T-Shroom? It's 9 o'clock our time, so we've been up here now for a while. But how are you doing this morning?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Tim. Got a little caffeine in my system today. Got to wake up, and there's some excellent headlines, and I can't wait to bring those to you guys. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Some of those headlines this morning are we've got on the market side, meaning like the stock market and the equities market, TSMC has invested $40 billion to build new plants here in the good old US of A. We're going to be diving into that. That is huge, very big story. Also geopolitically, Goldman Sachs has announced that they're going to be making tens of millions investment into crypto infrastructure. So that's pretty big. Bored Ape Yacht Club is getting into staking through Binance. So didn't see that one coming, but that's kind of exciting. Bored Ape Yacht Club just kind of continuing to assert its dominance in the NFT world.
Yeah.
Ethereum deflation experiment is failing. So we're going to be learning about that. Tim's done a deep dive on that, and he's super excited to chat about that. And then the UK is our cover story. The UK has announced some regulation on their advertising over there for crypto. And it wouldn't be a regulatory story if the US didn't dip their toes in too. And of course they have. They've also announced some regulation stuff as well. So that's going to be what we're talking about today, Tim. How's that sound?
It sounds like a good show to me. And we got some TA coming up here. I'm going to do Bitcoin, and then I'm going to ask, I actually asked on Twitter this morning, if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, at Tims_TA, you definitely want to do it. From time to time, I probably am going to do that. I'm going to ask you guys what you guys want to hear about TA. And so we have some good answers over there. But before we get there, go ahead, if you have not already, smash that like button. We got about 20 people in right now. Go ahead and smash the like button if this is your first time. Subscribe to the channel for some fun mornings. That ultimately, and I put out a video yesterday, we're going to have a lot of content on here, not only covering markets in terms of what it means and where you should be investing based off of news and technical analysis, but we also want to start addressing mindsets. We want to start addressing overall what is holistically healthy for a human, because as while we're investing bros, and this channel is mostly going to be talking about how to invest and trade properly, the only purpose of investing and trading and making more money, whether it be in crypto or stocks or any other way, is so that you can live a healthy life. If you have $1 million in the bank, but you are unhealthy as they come, whether it be relational, spiritual, or even like physical health, if you have a bunch of money but are not rounded as a person, what is the point of being able to invest? If that's something that you're passionate about as well, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Before I get into some TA, let's go ahead and check in with chat here and see who is here this morning. CBD Suddy, I think I'm saying that right. I've always seen it. I've never had to say it out loud. What's going on? Elliot Locke says that if I give him Matt's number, he'll call him every morning and wake his butt up. I don't know if Matt's wife would really appreciate it that much. But, Jeffrey Fritz, also, Crypto Sec Guy, has his number. So you can get it from him. Cryptex is in chat, one of our mods. By the way, coming very soon. I don't know exactly when. I know they're building it right now, and I'll give you guys the updates when I think that we're ready to do so. But we're building a Discord right now, an Investing Bros Discord. Cryptex and Crypto Sec Guy are working together to build that. So first of all, shout out to both of them, and thank you so much. That is not an area of expertise for me. So the fact that I have two guys over there with experience helping build that is phenomenal. When it comes out, I'll let you guys know, and you guys can join that. It's going to be a very interactive Discord, especially being as that this is a smaller channel. With us not being that big, it's going to be able to have a lot more close connections. I'm going to try to be in there as much as possible. T-Shirt will try to be in there as much as possible. Yeah. So keep your eyes out for that.
You know who I see is Grand Roofing Incorporated. I don't know if they've been in the chat yet so far for our show.
I thought I saw him the other day, but I know Smay's missing him. Smay's favorite florist is Smay always thought he was.
I see Elio Brown in the chat as well.
Yes.
Very active on Twitter. Almost as active as CBD Suddy.
Yeah, we got a lot of great people. Michael Norris is
I like
here.
Michael Norris's what he said, that he drinks crypto in the morning.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Well, let's go ahead and start. Let's do some TA. If we didn't say your name, we're so sorry. Thank you to everybody who's here. About 25 people are in right now. We're glad each and every single one of you guys are here.
Not as sorry as SBF, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I effed up. I think it was just there's a lot of names. And
we've had a tough month.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. All right, well, let's start over here on Bitcoin. I'm zoomed in. There's not a whole heck of a lot that has changed on Bitcoin. I don't know if you're already on my screen or not. I didn't turn on, goodness, I didn't turn on my monitor to make sure I can see what is on. It's a slow morning here.
Tammy.
But, I made a post the other day on Twitter. This ascending blue line, I'm not going to be surprised if we go and touch that. I'm not really necessarily freaking out. I'm not going to freak out no matter what. But I'm not too worried about Bitcoin's price until we break below that. Then it's when we're talking about potentially a dip back down into lower $16,000 numbers around that yellow line, potentially even maybe heading toward that green line. And then worst case scenario, we start hitting new lows. We come back down and retest this red line. But that blue line, in case you're wondering where it comes from, the 2 wicks that we had back here on November 9th and on November 14th, is that 13th, November 13th. Those were the first two touches, but you can notice that this line is being used not only for support several times like it was the first few times, but resistance as well. So it is turned back into support. I'm keeping my eyes fixed on that, especially when I pull up my oscillators. On the 4-hourly chart, there's not necessarily anything screaming at me bullish or bearish on these oscillators. It's the hourly ones that are actually give maybe the bulls a little bit of hope here, because after being overextended over here the other day, we're now back down into the camp of being probably overextended to the downside, where you could see a price start to rally. And sure enough, you guys see this new line I have right here. Let me go ahead and highlight that with a different color. What color should I do, T-shirt?
Green.
Green?
A different color? Pink.
I'm gonna do, let's do a vibrant pink for this support line. Now, there's a couple things that could happen here when you're looking at this chart. Let me move the oscillators down. There was a realistic line you could have been drawing right here, although we did break it and we're kind of sitting right hovering in the middle of it. But touching all of these wicks, that's a very realistic line. I would have understood if technical analysts would have drawn that line. But what I'm noticing this morning is this flat level. Yes, there were some wicks that dipped below, but this level has been significant. And again, I'm watching this blue line. It would make a lot of sense the way the price is moving that we actually might end up touching it somewhere around this region. This would actually give us a price a time of later tonight. So keep your eyes on that. 16,800. Do we potentially come back and bounce, testing this pink line of support, also that blue line of support? Zooming out before we switch away from Bitcoin, I'm still not freaking out too much because, again, when we're zooming out and we're not just focusing on the micro, but we're looking at the macro, we have turned this former resistance level going all the way back to our all-time high. We have turned that into support. This is one of the things you're going to see a lot of people. We might even talk about it a little bit later in the show. There are a lot of people actually almost throwing, they're throwing their coins in and saying, I think the bottom is guaranteed in. I'm not in that camp yet, but I do see some of the signs that it is possible. Again, not saying it is actually this way, but it is possible that the Bitcoin bottom is in, and that is one of the reasons. The other reason, and I talked about this the other day, but I'm going to go ahead and zoom out and show you guys once again, is if you guys are looking right in here, let's go ahead and zoom out. It's just hard to see unless I zoom it this way because I'm on the linear chart. But if you guys are looking at the last couple of bear markets, this one right here that we had back in 2015, we dropped below the 0.786 level and then hovered below it for a couple of, I guess this would be a couple of months more than likely, and then finally we rallied up, but our bottom was not that much lower than that 0.786 level. Zooming into the next bear market that we had back here, and this was the year of, 2018. 2018, almost the exact same thing. We dropped below the 0.786 level, kind of got rejected by it for a little bit, for a couple of months, ended up rallying. The same similar thing is kind of happening with this bear market right now. Let me go ahead and redraw that for you guys. Zooming out, if we go and grab our Fibonacci, go to the bottom, that was back during the pandemic. Let me, the screen is not giving me all the things I want. We have dropped below that 0.786 level. And so while I do think we potentially could go a little lower, we have done the exact same thing. We're about 30% lower than that 0.786 level, which by the way is the same as these ones. These are about 30% lower than 0.786. We're hovering. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is good news is that we don't necessarily have to go any lower, but if we keep that same trajectory we had over the last two bear markets, we could be hovering here for a while. I talked about that a little bit yesterday, that even if we don't end up setting a new bottom, don't be surprised if we end up bouncing between 15,000 and about 18,000 for the next couple of months. That would be consistent with the past. I'm hoping this is a time where we change that trend and end up doing something differently. But for right now, I'm keeping my eyes on what is happening there. It is a coincidence that we're seeing that happen similar to previous bear markets. So go off my screen real quick. T-Shroom. That's what I got on Bitcoin for today. Again, we'll keep you guys updated. If something changes on that, I will definitely let you guys know. But Bitcoin is not necessarily that interesting this morning. There are other altcoins that are interesting, but I actually went to Twitter. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for Twitter. Now I'm going to go to my thing. You guys can't see this, but I'm going to scroll through. I asked you guys, what coins do you want to see this morning? And I've gotten a lot of responses, and I'm looking at here. So a lot of people said ADA. So we'll do ADA, but I'll be quick with that one. I'm looking at these other ones. I've seen a lot of XRP, so I'm definitely going to do XRP. I saw a lot of AVAX, a lot of DOT, a lot of, let's see, what else do we got? Gala. I cannot do them all. So let's start with this. Let's do some ADA. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. Let's then check out some XRP. And then if I still have time, let's do AVAX. And the rest of those, I'll continue to ask you guys what you guys want to see. And we'll try to spread some more altcoin TA throughout other shows. But let's start off here. You can go back to my screen, T-Shroom. And we're going to go start off with ADA, where there was something interesting that happened. We got to go down to the hourly chart to see it. But it's not good news for ADA holders. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about why there's still some hope that we could go ahead and rally here soon. This blue line is Zoo Zone. I'm going to explain to you guys here in a second why I have that drawn up. But I talked about this yesterday. I went ahead and deleted it, but I had a yellow line drawn to say, hey, are we potentially in a trading channel? And I'll go ahead and redraw it for you guys. It's going to be pink because that was the last time I do this. Were we in a trading channel, and could we potentially jump back over that red line and retouch that? Or were we in a rising wedge? Well, guess what? Not only do we reject right on that red line, we also then just this morning broke bearish out of, or I guess this wasn't this morning, I think this is late last night. We broke bearish out of this rising wedge. Just looking at that from a technical standpoint, I don't think this is how low we're going to end up getting. But if I was going to use a rising wedge formation to try to make a prediction on where Cardano's price will be following, I'm going to go and open up from the opening of that rising wedge all the way to the breakout point, and this would give us a price prediction of 30 cents. And it actually makes a whole lot of sense when you're looking at that blue zone. I'm going to zoom out here in just a second and show you what that is. But what I'm keeping my eyes on before 30 cents, you guys see this blue line right here? Let me go ahead and change that blue line to a different color so you can see it. I'm going to change it to red. This blue line right here is one of the key levels that we've been looking at when we're looking at where trading volume has happened. Also, as we're getting closer to that point, you're going to notice we're getting overextended to the downside on our oscillators. We got the green cloud coming in saying, hey, we are oversold, it's time to buy. Let me look at the 4-hourly chart to see what it's looking like. It's not necessarily overextended, kind of similar to Bitcoin, but it's sitting in a zone where absolutely we could see a rally come, or we could see a continuation to the downside. So keep your eyes on 31 cents. So it'd be like 31.33. So 31.33 cents. I'm going to watch that area, especially on the hourly chart, as it's looking like we're overextended to the downside. But now I'm going to answer the question. Tim, what is this blue zone right here? So I want to zoom out here. I'm going to go out to the 3 daily chart and back us up and look at this fixed range volume profile. All right, so you guys are going to notice, you guys can see my screen good. There we go. These two pockets right here. And I'm going to talk for just a second because this is going to apply when you're doing technical analysis to any other project that you're working on. This zone right here is kind of measuring the pocket of this little level right here. I didn't draw it right here. I decided, you know what, let's just keep the point of the blue line. I don't need to have too many zones here. But especially since this is the zone we're operating in, and because that price level of 30 cents falls within this zone, I wanted to focus on this one. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. The reason I chose this is because a lot of times when you're looking at volume profiles, this is a little educational moment for you guys. When you're looking at volume profiles, a lot of people look at the valleys, they look at the mountains, and they kind of almost act like the peaks are the ones that you should be paying attention to the most. But even at that point, you don't necessarily know if the peak is going to be it. Is it going to be at close to the peak? Is it going to be a little bit below? The truth is, there's a whole zone right here. This peak in the volume is a whole zone where a lot of people were exchanging money. So the reason I have this as a zone, not as a flat line right at the peak, although I think that might be the most significant level of them all, it is because a lot of people are willing to exchange money all the way here. Another thing I want to kind of mention to you guys, and I think we're going to see this when we talk about a coin here in just a second, because I was doing a little bit of digging. I think XRP applies to this, but let's say it doesn't. I just want to kind of educate you guys. A lot of people will use this and say, all right, let's say we lose this level right here. Let's say we lose 29.61 cents. That's the bottom of this zone. This value that comes in, a lot of traders will almost act like, well, look at this value. It's going to be really easy to push all the way down to this lower level at 14 cents. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it can't do that. It absolutely could, because there's not a lot of people who have exchange value here. But something you will see, and especially as you're doing technical analysis, do not get fooled by this. Something you will see is after falling from a peak, or going up a peak, from a peak, sometimes you actually see the price end up settling in the valley, not pushing through it. So if you've heard some traders and some technical analysts talk about it, they almost act like if the price ends up falling below this little the fat level of volume, it's going to automatically go all the way down to the next fat level. And that's just not the case. Actually, a lot of times what happens is the price falls down into the easiest part of the valley, settles, and then bounces back up. So I drew that so you guys can see it visually. But where was that level right there? That level is sitting right there at 25 cents. There's Fibonacci levels on Cardano calling for 25 cents. I do believe if we cannot hold the 30-cent zone on Cardano, the price you're looking for, I'm not saying we won't drop down to 14 or 18, which other people are calling. But I think that the fact that the valley is at its lowest right there at 24, 25 cents is something to keep your eyes on. You don't only look for peaks when it comes to volume profiles. You also look at the depths of the valley where there could be a resting spot for a change of power between the bears and the bulls. So that's a little educational point for Cardano. At the moment, it does look like we are heading a little farther down. This would make a lot of sense, though. I don't think we're going too much farther. Remember, next Wednesday, so we got 8 days now, we're going to be getting those numbers from the Fed, from Jerome Powell, and I think that will have a large impact on what crypto prices do. Again, at this point, I would actually say it's probably leaning more bullish than bearish, but we'll keep you guys posted on what's happening there. Let's go ahead and check in on XRP and see what it is doing. Now, it is technically a little bit below this level I have drawn for you guys. I do this actually last week, but these levels have continued to stay significant. What we were looking at was an ascending triangle. This is actually really bullish for XRP. And you guys will notice right back here, we ended up actually breaking through that level and got rejected on a former level of support and resistance. You guys have seen me draw this on Bitcoin and others, but this level is another reason just to keep your zones, keep your support levels, keep your resistance levels on the charts, because they end up staying significant down the road. In fact, if you're actually looking at where we rejected right here, that peak, it didn't quite touch the zone, but it did touch the bottom of these wicks that we had back here in September on XRP. So theoretically speaking, this zone could get lowered a little bit to right there, and then you'd see it actually would be touching. Now, I'm still watching these levels. Even though we used this red line as support after breaking through, we're back below it, and we're back to using the blue ascending level of support. This means that we actually are setting higher lows, which is still a bullish case. And we're going to potentially have time to talk about this later, but there's a lot of news developing right now with the XRP trial, and I think that's going to play a big role as to what the price action of XRP ends up doing. We're sitting at a good spot from a technical analysis standpoint. We're overextended to the downside on the oscillators. We're sitting at a key level of support. There's a lot of speculation. There's an article I actually read this morning. There's 3 outcomes that we could be seeing happen. 1, the judge just completely sides with XRP, and SEC loses. Not only is that good for XRP, that's extremely good for the rest of the crypto space. Gary Gensler will lose a lot of power, in which case you might see XRP actually begin to blow back up, go through this level of resistance and start to climb. The other one is the judge could side with XRP, in which case you're going to see XRP it could side with Gary Gensler, which would be terrible for crypto, but especially for XRP, and you're probably going to see the price fall out of this ascending triangle. We'll have to do more technical analysis on that to see where it would go. Let me look at, before I move on, Let me look at what we're seeing right there. I would expect us to at least come back down to these levels around 28 cents, if not go even farther, because that's not a death sentence, I wouldn't say. Just because a coin gets deemed a security doesn't mean it can't continue to survive, but it would be very hard for XRP. And the last one, and I'll throw it to T-Shroom because he had a thought there. The last one is potentially what the judge decides is that XRP at one point, or Ripple at one point, did offer security, but XRP is not one. It would kind of give a victory to XRP itself, but still allow the SEC to have some power to go after other cryptos. So, there's 3 outcomes that could happen. 2 of them are bullish for XRP, and so that is why I still believe, I think XRP specifically is going to have a nice rally, but what I'm really hoping is that the judge ends up saying that Gary Gensler and his filings and his whole case was absolutely ridiculous, and that will actually save a lot of cryptocurrencies down the road. T-Shroom, you ever thought about that?
Well, I was just going to say that it could be good for XLM if XRP goes down. So if XRP loses the case to the SEC, XLM could do well. In that third scenario.
Mm-hmm. So here's it. In the first scenario, good for XRP and good for crypto. Mm-hmm. It'll do well for XLM, but not as well because XRP will, survive. I think that if I don't know. Now that I'm saying it out loud, we'll have to talk about this more in a different episode because I know that wasn't what we had planned today. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see. I think Stellar Lumen can have some good things happen. I'm not saying it won't. I think the best route is if, for some reason, despite winning this lawsuit, there are just some people who refuse to adopt and utilize XRP, in which case XLM not having the same negativity, maybe it takes it over. But I see the relationship between the two of them being the same as Dogecoin and Shiba Inu. Shiba Inu had its moments and its months, but it's not going to surpass on a large scale Doge. If Doge dies, so will Shiba Inu. If Doge does well, Shiba Inu can do well as well. It just won't do as well. There's a lot of wells in there in that sentence.
I think that the financial services industry sees XLM and XRP kind of like how they see Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud, where it's like they're very, very similar. It's just Amazon Web Services is like just better, right? So XRP is kind of just better, but it's basically the same thing. They've just branded themselves really well and all of this. If XRP goes down in this SEC case, I think if I'm all these financial services that have partnered with XRP, I'm just looking across the hall to XLM and saying, okay, what's going on over there with those guys? Because they have the same founder.
I just think if XRP loses the case, other cryptos are next. Like the SEC is going to go after other cryptos, other altcoins. And XLM, it's only a matter of time for XLM.
Here's the difference, though. XRP is a private company; it's for profit. Okay. Whereas like that, and that's the kind of the biggest thing why I think that they don't they're so different. I think there's only a handful of other cryptos that their organization is a for-profit company, and also XRP is very centralized. The folks at XRP, Ripple Labs, they've got a lot of the coin, and so and they're the only ones that can mine it, I believe, something like that. And you can't stake it.
No, that's not true. There's absolutely other node operators. I had a whole conversation with one of the guys at XRP. There's a lot of misconstrued details.
There's other node operators, but can other people mine it? Can other people
create it,
like stake it and earn XRP rewards?
I'll have to look more
something.
Into that one.
It's a question for the chat, but I'm under the impression that they cannot. You cannot stake XRP.
I'll have to do more research on that one. Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to AVAX, though, and we will only have time to do this last one. And
AVAX is
processing. It does have huge news.
We haven't covered it yet.
Well, so the good side, what I'm looking at right now, we're out in the daily chart. So again, this is another example of keep your trend lines in effect. Now, you're going to see there's wicks below right here, and there's some candles that close below right here. But this blue line has been significant. I believe if we zoom over here, we're going to see, So this is attached to candle body closes that we had all the way back in September of 2021. Now, this line has been utilized back here in May. It was a wick during one of the big drops. Let's see, in May would have been Celsius, right? No, Luna. May was Luna's drop.
I don't remember.
I get the catastrophic events mixed up. It's one of the big ones. We dropped down, had that huge wick, tested that blue line, tested it again. We ended up breaking through it, kind of using that zone as resistance, but then broke back through it and it is support once again. We found support here just a couple of weeks ago back late November, and we're starting to head back up. Same thing with this red line. We have found this line. This actually starts, I have it extending back just to see where it goes. don't really pay attention to any of that stuff. It mostly starts with the bottom wick that we had. Now, this one I do know. Back in January of 2022, of course, that was when we started to have some rough stuff happening. That's when the bear market really started, but some people held out. Now, to be fair, I was one of them. I thought we were going to rally and have some more success, but it was the beginning of the catastrophic price falling. We also used it right here. This is we found brief support on it right here back in May before falling through and setting that wick. But now we've tested it 2 more times as resistance. So with this being a falling wedge, this is something to keep your eyes on that we could be breaking out. I'm not going to say that there's necessarily a prediction on this one. I'm not going to use that as the opening one. I'm just going to say that this should have us rally to the upside, and we'll choose some price points. More than likely, keep your eyes on some of these peak levels. So we're looking at around $20.39. We're looking maybe a little higher at $21, maybe going all the way significantly up to $30. Keep your eyes on those points, but for now, we're starting to head back to the upside. Let's look at some oscillators here on the daily chart. Kind of matched what we saw here. We bottomed out, hitting that zone of support. Same thing with the RSI. We started to get our bullish RSI divergence, price going down on the bottoms, RSI going up. Our oscillator told us, hey, it's time to buy. We got our green cloud in, started to rally up to the upside. Let's look at a more, shorter time frame. Let's see what we might be expecting over the next couple of days. Here on the 4-hourly chart, we're kind of sitting back in the middle. I actually love when this happens. I love when the RSI climbs to being overextended to the upside and then drops back down to the 50, finding support. A lot of times what that will mean, and I'm not saying it happens every single time. There are times where it will just continue to drop through. But just as important as when we're looking at these 70 and this 30 level on the RSI, I love watching the 50 because it's the neutral ground. And when you go from being overextended and fall or rise back to the 50 and find support on it, what you're more often than not seeing is a regrouping effect. So on the 4-hourly chart, yes, we started a nice little rally here a couple of days ago. We peaked out right here at $14.27. It was time to have a little bit of a cool off, but watch that price drops a lot. That price dropped a lot the price didn't drop that much compared to how far the RSI dropped. I'm not going to say that this is the divergence yet and giving us anything significant, but let me just review some of these points. Let's look at this one right here, this 11 o'clock point back on December 3rd. Look at where the price is due to where the price is right now, and look at where the RSI is. I'm not going to say that that is a continuation bullish divergence. It technically is. I'm just not going to read that much into it. What I'm saying is it looks at the moment like what AVAX is doing on a shorter time frame is taking a cool off, which is a normal part of a rally, and it's actually regrouping for another run. But here's what you keep your eyes out for. Do we potentially beat this price action right here, this peak? Technically the 4-hourly close is around $14.19. Do we beat that price and beat with the RSI going above 70? Or do we actually go a little bit above that price, maybe going up towards $15, but the RSI doesn't get that high, and now we have our bearish RSI divergence, and it's actually time for the trend to go ahead and change? That's what I would be keeping my eyes on. I do know we have some news on AVAX. The other thing that you guys should know, technical analysis is still good and still very helpful on some of these altcoins, but because the volume is not as high, even Bitcoin, certain times, there's not enough volume to actually really utilize the technical analysis by itself to make a prediction. Same thing with some altcoins. Sometimes the volume doesn't give you enough information, and breaking news stories are a lot more important than technical analysis. But the last thing I will say, and I'm noticing this right now, again, I don't look at AVAX all the time, but literally as I was talking to you guys, I'm looking at this formation, and you can't see it as clearly on the 4-hourly, but I'm guaranteeing you we're going to see it on the hourly. Yeah, we have a little bit of bull right there. This is the same as what we had on, I think Bitcoin has it, the inverse head and shoulders pattern. So my last thing, I'm going to kind of show you guys what this chart would say if we're going to respect this and where it should give us a price prediction. And then I'm going to throw it over to T-Shroom as we begin to open the market this morning. So let's go ahead and draw our neckline right across. We're still operating with pink. Love it. Notice this line was resistance, 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 support. So this right here is where we're going to be able to break out from. So now we're going to go from the bottom of that head up to that neckline, but I got to grab my line, and it's not letting me click it. Come on, there we go. Up to the neckline, move this over to that bouncing point, not just the breakout. We're actually going to move it down to where we came back and retested. And this inverse head and shoulders pattern would give us a price prediction for AVAX at $14.83, which means, and I'm not saying to go and enter a trade right now, but I'm saying is if this ends up playing out and you went and chose to purchase right now and long this, you could get almost a 10% return on that trade. So again, pause that. Tim, are you saying go into your long? No, that's not what I'm saying. If you like this chart and you like the news and you like what's going on and you feel comfortable with AVAX, then this is a position that you could say, wow, this is an opportunity that I can make a 10% return on a trade. That, though, is completely up to you and your own research. I'm just here showing you what the chart is saying, and we're going to talk about the news, but make sure that you invest wisely. With that said, T-Shroom, let's go ahead and jump in and start talking as the market opens this morning. Let's move into some stocks and talk about them. By the way, while we do that, I think it was, someone, was it? Whose was it? Somebody asked me on Twitter. They said, "Can we look up Ulta?" And Ulta is on a tear. I don't know if you ever looked at that. It's on a tear. I do think it's going to start. It's a little overextended to the upside.
What is Ulta?
Ulta, I think isn't it that beauty shop? It's a bunch of makeup and he was just talking about. He said the other day his wife uses it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
He's like, no matter what the economy looks like, you got to look good. And I was like, well, fair.
True.
And it's sitting very close to an all-time high. It is overextended. The RSIs and stuff are overextended, but it's interesting. But let's go ahead and talk about stocks.
Okay. So really quick, the AVAX story is that Avalanche is to power Alibaba cloud infrastructure services in Asia. So we'll just read that headline and keep moving. So world markets, go ahead and refresh this. Market should be opening here in about, it's open. So markets are, so Asian markets close slightly higher. European markets are currently slightly lower. So taking a look at the market open here, we can see that the SPY is opening slightly higher or slightly lower. All the indexes are mixed and not really moving in any singular direction. Let's check the ES from last night. ES is the futures market, and it had the S&P coming down. So more than likely, that's what's going to take place, at least in the early morning, is the S&P is going to correct a little bit. So looking at crypto at the market open, it's looking, pretty. I mean, the big names are opening up moderately higher. Ethereum coming down a little bit, but Binance staying green. That may be due to a story we're going to get into here in just a second, involving the Bored Ape Yacht Club. But let's take a look at energy. Energy has been something I've been tracking pretty intensely. UNG, man, it has been on an absolute tear to the downside. Oil taking a hit this morning as well. Let's take a look at UNG. I drew this new line here as it's coming down, and it's already broken through. I don't know if you can see this small candle here. It's already broken through this line of support. Downtrending. This is
natural gas?
Natural gas.
Is this the one you have a long on or a short on?
Both.
Oh, this is one. I thought you said you a long on one and a short on the other.
Nope. They're ETFs of this commodity.
Nice.
So, so it's broken down there. So that means I'm looking for it probably to come down and touch this much longer term line of support. Which is going to put that, down in the probably close to like 1650, 1640. So it's got some ways to fall. But, if you're long and short on it, that's a good place to be, because ultimately this is more than likely going to bounce back as we go into the winter months, especially into next year, because the European stock of natural gas is actually coming in lower for next year. So they're good for this winter is what's being reported, but they will have to start importing natural gas for next year. Mm-hmm. And that's when the prices are expected to come back higher. So that's kind of the market open, not really moving in one direction very aggressively this morning.
Yeah.
It's still trying to find its feet. I mean, we're only a few minutes in here. But so let's look at the Fed CME tool here. Let me refresh it. So basically saying the same thing it was yesterday. Still predicting 50 basis point hike. I just found out this, and I put a link in the description to my Robinhood account, so that you can get a free stock and I can get a free stock. Robinhood to pay 1% match on customer contributions to retail individual retirement accounts. You heard that right, folks.
Now this is where the drama starts, T-Shroom. And this is what I want to hear. Again, we've had this discussion, debate before. So first of all, T-Shroom's venture into crypto happened through Robinhood because he was trading stocks
and
on it.
Still is happening in Robinhood.
T-Shroom was an avid Robinhood fan.
Yeah.
I got into crypto And well, no, I got into crypto before this, but I remember when I started doing a lot of research was right around the time that a lot of fishy stuff was happening on Robinhood. And I know crypto holders in general are not the biggest fans. I would love to know, chat, what are your thoughts about Robinhood? And I'm going to give you a minute, T-Shroom, to convince people that if they have negative thoughts about Robinhood, that they're ill-founded.
I'm a smart person and I use Robinhood. There's my argument.
Wow, you saved like 57 seconds.
So, I mean, this is just a quick story. This isn't anything crazy. Well, it is kind of crazy because I don't think that there's any other brokerage services that now that offered their own, I believe it's an IRA, so and that they're going to match it 1%. I've never even heard of an IRA doing that. So that's pretty cool. Moving along, TSMC, this is the big story of the day for the market. TSMC, the chip maker from Taiwan, has announced that they are moving to Arizona well, they're not moving to Arizona, but they're investing in Arizona, and they're going to do a $40 billion with second semiconductor plant. So the investment by TSMC is one of the largest foreign investments in U.S. history and the largest in the state of Arizona. Semiconductor chips are used in everything from computers, smartphones, cars, microwaves, healthcare devices. Once the plant opens, they will produce enough chips to meet the U.S. Annual demand. And I heard that demand will be met as early as 2028, folks. We will be completely independent with chip production. Obviously, that's a foreign corporation, but domestically, what's produced on our soil. So that's huge because that then de-escalates tensions with China. Then that's where it gets into the geopolitics of it all. Going back into the announcement comes in wake of the passage of the Chips and Science Act, which was signed into law in early August and very greatly benefited our beloved Nancy Pelosi because she knew that was going to happen and she made a lot of money off NVIDIA. Moving along, well, did you have any thoughts on that, Tim, on the chip manufacturer?
I love the little throw to Nancy Pelosi knew it was happening all along.
Big Nance making it happen.
Listen, we're going to have to get her on the show. Investing Bros needs a good insider to give their take.
Yeah, maybe we'll make an unannounced stop by her house and see if we can get an interview.
That'll be received.
Maybe her husband will be home.
Extremely
not her. But all right, moving along. Exclusive. This is pretty big. Getting into crypto stuff. Getting back into crypto. So exclusive, Goldman Sachs on hunt for bargain crypto firms after FTX fiasco. And this is kind of where we're going to hunker in and chat for a little bit. So we'll come back to that actually because there's a couple more headlines I wanted to cover. Binance NFT Marketplace will launch an Ape NFT staking program. So, you can kind of guess what this is about. Effective in mid-December, on the 12th of December, or from the time we otherwise notify on Twitter. That's a weird way of saying that. Users may stake their Bored Ape Yacht Club or Mutant Ape Yacht Club NFTs on Binance to earn Ape rewards. So I don't know. Do you know of any other ways that you can stake NFTs? Is that a new thing?
That is not something I know anything about. I don't own any NFTs. I don't stake NFTs.
Yeah, my hunch is that there's got to be infrastructure out there to where you can put your NFTs somewhere and you get rewarded. I don't know if they're calling it staking yet, but I think it's probably the first one at the Binance scale. Again, could be stand corrected on that because I know that I'm not super in the loop on NFT happenings. But yeah, so actually we will go ahead and read this Goldman Sachs because this isn't our thumbnail story.
Yeah.
So Goldman Sachs on the hunt for bargain crypto firms after FTX fiasco. Let's dive in. Goldman Sachs plans to spend tens of millions of dollars to buy or invest in crypto companies after the collapse of the FTX exchange hit valuations and dampened investor interest. FTX implosion has heightened the need for more trustworthy, regulated cryptocurrency players, and big banks see an opportunity to pick up businesses, Matthew McDermott, Goldman Sachs head of digital assets, told Reuters. Maybe eliciting some reactions already from this article, from this development. It's definitely set the market back in terms of sentiment. There's absolutely no doubt about that, McDermott said. FTX was a poster child in many parts of the ecosystem, but to reiterate, the underlying technology continues to perform. So he can't be any more correct there. And a final quote here. What's increased is the number of financial institutions wanting to trade with us, he said. I suspect a number of them traded with FTX, but I can't say that with cast iron certainty. So folks are flooding away from FTX and going into alternatives. by folks, I mean institutions.
And, I saw a lot of people. A lot of people were assuming with all this stuff that the people are going to be taking. If you could get anything out of it, that you were just going to turn around and say, "I'm not touching crypto." But a lot of money, even a lot of people are selling their stakes in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, GBTC or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought, oh, they're just getting out of the market. No, it's actually they're just taking out of GBTC and moving it over into Bitcoin itself. I mean, this is the ultimate story of buy when there's blood in the streets, even if it's your own. Goldman Sachs is not. This isn't their first investment. They've invested in crypto before. They're bleeding, but they say this is a great opportunity watching what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it kind of poses the question. It's like, so Goldman Sachs is saying there needs to be a trustworthy entity in crypto. Who's to say that Goldman Sachs is a trustworthy entity? Full stop. I think that's kind of the question that can be raised here. The answer to that is, well, Goldman Sachs has been bailed out by the government before and Warren Buffett. In 2008, when the government had to bail out the banks, Goldman Sachs got a ton of money and was able to keep operations opening. Now, you can say what you will about the big bank bailout under Bush, but it happened, and a lot of folks think it had to happen. So maybe if we start getting some too big to fail entities into crypto, that could bring it more structural stability. The other side of that argument is we need to keep the banks out of crypto because they're just going to do all the same things that we didn't like about traditional banking.
When you say keep them out of crypto, what do you mean? You can't keep them out of crypto. If they want to invest, they get it to invest, and that's part of decentralized nature of crypto that we want. We want them to be able to do it. What we don't want them to do is to continue to manipulate the space to where they're paying the news articles and they're paying the news outlets and everything to paint a narrative to get all the rest of us retailers out, and so that they can go in and purchase up a mass amount. We want to be moving like them, I mean, there's evils in the space. Obviously, back when BlackRock made its deal with Coinbase, talking about another too big to fail entity that's in the crypto space, there's a lot of people freaking out about that. But you can't control that. And the minute you do start controlling that has a lot to do with even Twitter. A lot of people were upset with Twitter because of the censorship. And I think more often than not, you saw the censorship happen on the conservative side in terms of more conservatives were censored. I do have some friends that have told me no, Tim, there were liberals who were censored as well. But more often than not, it was the conservatives. But in the same boat, would we want to flip it? Do we want to start censoring a bunch of liberal ideas? No, we don't want to flip the scale either. So we're trying to take power away from the central banks. We want decentralized money, but it wouldn't make sense to flip the script and say, we don't want the big banks here. Get out of here. We're going to prevent you from being here, because now you're just changing the tyrant. And that's not the point of decentralization.
Absolutely. And I would tend to strongly agree with that sentiment. I was just presenting the steelman argument for kind of what the counter argument would be. So we want to keep these institutions that we don't necessarily trust, that have to be bailed out by the government, that started buying up mortgage-backed securities that they weren't understanding the subpar rates of, and they were potentially even working behind the scenes with the S&P and Moody's and the rating agencies to rate mortgages higher than they were.
Yeah.
And then they were buying those up and selling them to America. And then when the housing market started to fail, all of that went down with it. And then Goldman had to say, hey, daddy, government, daddy, Uncle Sam, we need some help over here.
That's a complicated family if it's daddy, Uncle Sam.
Right. So it's like, yeah. So, it's kind of a, we hope for the best. We hope for the best, and I personally am not I'm not feeling shudders down my spine to see Goldman Sachs kind of saying, hey, how FTX was buying up a bunch of companies to be the stability in the industry? Well, I think it's a good time for us to step into that because crypto's not going anywhere. Yeah. And then also Elliot Locke helped us out here. He said, yes, you can stake CNFTs for utility tokens, and I've got on that stakes
Crypto
radio.
Set guy said he stakes his NFTs.
Yeah.
So
cool. So that means that, just reinforces that we are not the experts on NFTs.
No,
but
not at all.
But
Not at all.
Yeah. So cool. That's really awesome. And this is why this is a community, guys, because we don't know everything. We rely on you guys for a lot. But are you ready to get into our thumbnail story here, Tim?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have some time. Do you want to?
We do have some time.
But you know what? Just in case we want to really go deep in with that, let's go ahead and do that story real quick. I wanted to check in with chat before we got there.
Let's do it.
First of all, welcome Matt C into chat.
Matt C's in the chat.
Yeah,
Let's
he's
go.
you know, our resident Californian who cannot be bothered until 6:30 a.m. So you know, welcome Matt. We love you. So glad you are here. Love when you come in and say good point, Tim. That always helps my ego. There was a good question that was asked earlier, and I think they directed at you. I pulled it up on my chart, but I'm trying to find it. They were asking about your thoughts, T. Shroom, on the S&P 500 hitting a level of resistance, a pretty key level of resistance. Have you been following the S&P?
Yeah. Let me go to my
from
screen.
Cryptex. He said, "What do you think about the S&P rejecting from a pretty major trend line from the top of January?"
Yeah, so I have kind of a haphazard a line drawn here. It's probably for the 4 hour, is why it doesn't look super accurate. Nope, it's just a bad line.
Yeah, you can go to my. I have it on my screen right here, and then you can see it as well. This is actually something that's important. There's a support level as well, although we didn't come back down and touch that support level. But the line I'm assuming he's referring to, it actually goes all the way back to the peak we had right back here at the end of December, right there, beginning of January. We touched it again in March. Let's see, is that March? Yeah, March. We touched it again in August, and now we just rejected on it once again here in November. The support level, there's actually two zones. If you go back to December, there's a more a more bullish zone, and then there's a more bearish zone. It's going to be interesting. The last time we bottomed out, let me pull up the RSIs on this one. The last time the RSI got overextended to the downside, we didn't get anywhere close to this level of support. So is this potentially what we're seeing happen right now? I think that the S&P is going to fall again, and this actually makes sense historically. This is going to be really interesting. What we call what happens next week. A lot of people think that they're going to start classifying this as the Fed pivot as they start to lower rates. I don't think that meets the technical definition. In my mind, a pivot really happens when they actually start cutting rates, not just lowering the raising. But some people call it that. And we told you guys, historically, we actually end up seeing between 30 to 50% dips in the stock market after those pivots. But go back to my screen real quick.
No, I disagree. I don't disagree with what everything of what you're saying, but I'm back on your screen. Oh, but narrowly, I think the Fed moving from 75 to 50 is very significant. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, word
you're going to call.
I don't know that I would call it a pivot, but I don't think the financial industry has to be married to the word pivot.
I think it's good, but some people are saying that it's a pivot.
Yeah,
and that shouldn't be called a pivot yet, just because they're lowering rates. It'll be officially a pivot when they start cutting rates. But anyways, go back to my screen real quick. So could we potentially be seeing? I have my marker out. A rounding bottom that ends up changing. Now, this could still end up dipping to the downside, but instead of a straight down and we're going to keep setting these lower lows, are we going to start evening out with matching lows, start double bottoms, potentially even some double tops, and get a little bit of a channel going before we have to make a decision? Do we want to go even further down to the downside because we're hitting a major recession, or will we finally be able to rally back up? Will we get out of that recession? Will the economy begin to recover? It's going to keep our eyes on that. That's what we're starting here. By breaking and not touching the support level, it is a rounding effect. But Cryptex, you are right. That was a very important touch right there. Hitting that resistance level and not breaking through it, it means that there is further to the downside to go. In my estimations, let me see. Let's just say we went back and retouched that same bottom. We could potentially drop another 15% here on the S&P 500. And then just double bottom there around 3,492.
Yeah.
So,
I guess what I would say about that as well is, I mean, Tim did some pretty good analysis there, but if you draw a line on the NASDAQ, it's actually, not even done as well as the S&P. It hasn't come up and really touched that line, but then also the Dow Jones has done the opposite. So the Dow Jones has actually gone ahead and penetrated that support or that resistance and gone ahead and gone further, and even kind of bounced around in a new channel here. So, and then there's a variety of reasons for that, but we won't get into that too much. When I look at the S&P, I am thinking this is going to come back and test. I don't think it's going to come back and test the bottom, though. I think it's going to come, if I had to draw, I hope it's not on black. Sometimes it goes to black. It's on black. Look at that. I think it's going to come in and oh, technology. Probably come in and test a little bit lower here and then come back and go higher. Now, if the Feds, if Jerome doesn't end up going to 50 basis points, then yeah, you probably end up seeing it come down. And and test lower and keep going down but I think that we are seeing a macro change here. If we go from 75 to 50, maybe that's not a pivot, but who cares what pivot's not a financial term. It's just a
true
in the air term. So I think everything revolves around what inflation ends up being in the next couple prints, and then what Jerome ends up doing if he goes from 75 to 50, and then obviously what his speech is about. Although this is going to be a time where the speech is less important as the print, right, or as the decision. So we'll be very closely watching on the 14th what ends up happening. The CME is still very much predicting 50 basis point hike. Yeah. So we shall see. But I think the S&P will come out of this downward channel that it's in, and it will break through and it will go higher, because this is a fundamental change in the macro. So I think it's going to come back, go higher. It doesn't mean it's going to go to like 5. This is not the
that would make sense with a rounding effect. Yeah.
So all right, well, let's get into our final story here, because we have a decent amount of time left. But so the UK is set to announce new crypto regulation, and the UK plans to legislate for new regulatory powers to police crypto companies. The FCA, may clamp down on crypto adverts by overseas companies. So regulators will have more power to police the sector, including a clampdown on crypto-related advertisements by companies outside the UK. The Financial Times reported on Monday. The Financial Conduct Authority will also monitor how crypto companies operate. So that's where it starts to get, a little bit more like eyebrow raising. I can kind of understand the advertising part. But then how companies operate, that's a little bit, that's more. There's more to that story. There's more meat to those bones. Crypto industry leaders have long called for more comprehensive framework in the UK, similar to the European Union's market in crypto assets, MiCA, law for some of the various plans being discussed in the United States. Instead, the UK prefers a piecemeal approach of incremental changes, which has frustrated some. And then there's a quote here: "We need to put in place clear guardrails for these kinds of centralized actors. And this is what founding members of the Crypto UK Came to Select Committee in 2018 asked for." So they're asking for it. Now, it wouldn't be regulation if it didn't happen also in the US, and of course it did. FTC probes possible misconduct in cryptocurrency advertising. So they're also revving their engines for regulation here in our crypto advertising space. So what do you think? Is this good or bad for crypto, Tim?
Actually, at this point, I don't think it really matters whether it's good or bad. I think it's just needed. And I talked about this well over a year ago. Here is the problem when you invest and get into some crappy projects. And to be fair, I can't even blame the people that got into FTX. That wasn't a crappy exchange. That is just a full-out lie, and is one of the reasons why potentially this regulation is actually needed. But I talked about this well over a year ago, that when you buy into stupid things, and when you buy into things that are going to lose you money, the retail investor that does that will start screaming. And guess who comes to take care of the screaming baby? Mommy government, and then according to T-Shroom, Daddy Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Mommy government, Daddy Uncle Sam, they come in and they just ruin everything with regulation. But at the same time, it's one of those things, it's like crypto will never actually get up off the ground and start moving as long as people don't trust it. And what we have seen happen recently, those of us who are closer to the information know that there are some bad characters involved, that you can't label the entire crypto market terrible because of the sins of a few, yet that is what the masses are doing with it. Those who do not know crypto, they're blaming the entire crypto space. So in a role like, it's almost like I wish that we could regulate ourselves and just take care of ourselves and not try to cheat people and scam people and lie to people, but that's just not how it works. And so this concept of going after advertising, I mean, I was even watching the other day, I don't pay attention to all these little itty bitty cryptos, but there are still these little ones that influencers will get a hold of, and they'll just flat out lie to people about what the purpose of the project is, what they're going to do with it. They'll tell them it's going to the moon, and they're scamming people left and right. So to have a little bit of regulation as far as advertising actually makes a lot of sense. And it's one of those things, do I wish that we could get away without it? Yes, I absolutely do. But I also understand that we're idiots. Us retail investors. And unfortunately, if we want the space to continue and move forward, at this point, mommy government and daddy Uncle Sam are going to have to get involved. And whatever England calls their
FCA.
Uncle Sam. No, what do they call their Uncle Sam? I don't. Do they have like an Uncle Sam character? I don't know. Not a queen now.
Yeah, I guess the king.
There's a king. Yeah, Daddy King. So I think again, do I like regulation? No. We, as we've said on Coffee and Crypto, the word regulation is a lot like the word moist. You don't want to hear it. It's not your favorite word, but I think we're getting to a place where if you guys as investors want to see your crypto portfolio go to the upside, regulation is just an absolute must. I think this is one of the steps, and I think it's actually going to be overall net good for the crypto space. It might come with a couple negatives. It might come with a couple restrictions that we don't love, but it's going to be net good to allow some legitimacy to come back in the space. Regulation is better than banning. I would much rather see regulation.
Literally just about to say that. So that's exactly my thought. Is like, look, a bunch of people just got burned by FTX, by Celsius, and by Three Arrows Capital, and by a couple other names. And it's like, at what point do you say maybe this gold rush needs to be more regulated? At first, I don't think it was appropriate. Now I think we're entering a phase where regulation is not only appropriate, but it's necessary for the furtherance of crypto. And it's not like they're coming in and they're wanting to regulate the Bitcoin blockchain, or they're wanting to tell Vitalik how he has to run Ethereum, right? They're just saying, hey, advertisers of a lot of for-profit companies like Coinbase and companies like that, exchanges, it's not it's usually not even the blockchains themselves. It's the third parties, the exchanges, or like the ledgers, like the cold wallets, or media companies, things like that, things around the industry that need to be regulated. Although there was a blockchain, or it was an exchange that, do you remember there was like a flurry of tweets that was saying that it was claiming it was FDIC? Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah. So like that type of thing has to be regulated. Or it already is.
Absolutely.
Like that's super messed up. Crypto is not FDIC backed. So there does need to be regulatory clarity. Where it starts to be overreach is where you start to read, that sentence that I read before, where they want to also get into operations of the company. Right here, you can see Financial Conduct Authority will also monitor how crypto companies operate. So that's different from control, which is good. We want monitoring of companies, right, that we're trusting our money with, as long as they aren't monitoring the actual users as well. So transparency is something that I value, and so I'm not seeing anything about this story that's really all that threatening. I think it's time for regulation, and I think this is another. It's a peripheral of crypto. It's just the advertising piece, and I know our thumbnail maybe expresses a different sentiment, where it's like oh, daddy UK government, or mommy UK government shielding the eyes of the young kid, because there is a bit of irony to this, right? At the end of the day, from a libertarian standpoint, it's like, if you look at an ad, you better be able to make your own damn mind up if you want that product or not.
Yeah, I and it's really sad, because it's absolutely right. It's the government is becoming mommy that shields the poor child from advertising that the child was too stupid. Like, people honestly looked at some of this advertising that was absolutely stupid and said, "Oh, I think that's going to work for me. I'm going to go invest in that project." Yeah. And it's just like, no, like you got to you got to actually, I say this, we should just know human nature. Mm-hmm. We're idiots.
Yeah.
Humans are idiots.
I know I am.
We're very intelligent idiots. I mean, if you just look at the way we operate, the way our brains are, like, it's amazing that our brains operate the way they are. But like people just want to do things the easy way. They hear, and this is a little bit about what I was talking about in yesterday's, like last night's video I made. People hear you can make a lot of money fast, and they don't check the sources, and they don't check how it actually works. They don't do research. And what's really sad is that, and I should have talked about this in the video, but this is another thing, is if you're going to put thousands of dollars into something, why is that not worth your time as well to research? There's just way too many people putting hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into things, and then almost acting like, whatever, I'll come back and check on it in a couple of years, and it'll make me billions. And it's like, no, you just lost all of your money because you were too lazy to actually go and do research. You just saw an ad. You said, that sounds really cool. I'm going to invest in it, and you did no research whatsoever until human nature changes and we start becoming people who like to work and to think and to do stuff for ourselves. We'll need these mommy and daddy government characters to cover our eyes and to tell us when we can and can't do things. And that's the only way we'll survive.
I think the term is infantilizing. We have been infantilized by our government. Matt C. says, I agree, we need regulation, but let's not be naive to think that once they are in the space, that they won't abuse their power and overreach at some point.
Absolutely.
And then Army Piper said, we are all operating on the same bio program. Why do you think Fibonacci works on charts? Fascinating. That's a really insightful, two insightful quotes from chat, and I expected nothing less.
No, and Matt is 110% correct. They will, and it's going to suck. But again, it goes back to, at this point, we're coming up on two options. Do you want to have regulation and be restricted, or do you want crypto to just all out be banned and not be allowed to be utilized? I choose the first, but let me know what you guys think. It is time to wrap out today's show. We got to get off and get some other stuff done. But first of all, make sure you guys go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you to everyone who is watching. At one point, I think we had 60 concurrent, which is phenomenal. One of our highest days other than the first show. But if you have not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button on the way out. If you have struggled to see some of our streams, make sure you hit that notification bell. And the last one, a lot of you are asking, man, I love this channel. I love Tim and T-Shroom. How can we help? One of the biggest things that you can do to help press us in the algorithm is not only do all those things we just said, but also comment below any video you see. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Let us know some suggestions on some content you would love to see in the future. By the way, tomorrow, I always forget to make these announcements, but I'm making it today and I'll make it tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll be joining, you guys see Army Piper in chat. I'm going to be joining him over on Chart Prime, the YouTube channel. Go to my screen real quick. It looks like this, I'm assuming. If I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm going to be joining him tomorrow afternoon to talk about what the Fed pivot looks like, what a timeline potentially will look like for that. So make sure you guys tune in. I'll give you guys more details tomorrow.
He's got you tuned up. He's got you queued up there.
He does.
First thumbnugh.
Oh, I didn't even check that. Look at T-shirt.
Look at that's a handsome looking guest he's got queued up. Look at that.
Man, what a picture. That's a good photographer took that picture too.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, you can go off my screen. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining another episode of Investing Bros. That is all we have for you guys today, but we will see you tomorrow. Have a good day.